He rescued her on Christmas night, but what followed was pure nightmare. HFY Sci-Fi. Christmas night came quietly to the frontier world of Haven 12. Snow fell in slow, gentle sheets, covering metal streets and glass towers in white. Lights blinked from windows, and soft music drifted through the air as families celebrated far from Earth. It was a night meant for warmth, rest, and peace. Elias Vorn was not celebrating. He sat alone in the cockpit of a rescue shuttle, sipping cold coffee and watching the storm move across his sensors. Elias was a search and rescue pilot, one of the few still on duty during the holiday. He had volunteered, as he always did. Someone had to answer the calls when things went wrong, and Elias believed that if he could help even one person, it was worth it. The console beeped once. Then again, Elias straightened. A red symbol flashed across the screen, distress signal. "That's odd," he muttered. The signal was weak, old, and coming from far outside the city dome. No registered ship ID. No emergency code used by human vessels. It was coming from the frozen wilderness where only mining drones and survey teams ever went. Control patched in moments later. "Elias, we see it too," the dispatcher said. "Signal strange, could be debris or a malfunctioning beacon." "Or someone in trouble," Elias replied. There was a pause. "Proceed with caution," Control said. "You're cleared to investigate." The shuttle lifted smoothly and cut through the night sky. Below him, the city lights faded, replaced by endless white plains and jagged black rock. Wind battered the hull as snow thickened, forcing Elias to fly by instruments alone. As he followed the signal, his unease grew. The beacon pattern was wrong, not human, not anything he recognized. Then he saw it. A half-buried escape pod lay smashed into the ice, its hull cracked open like a broken shell. Smoke rose weakly from inside. No human markings, no familiar alloys. The pod was alien. Elias' heart pounded. First contact protocols screamed in his mind. He was supposed to report it and wait, but the heat scan showed movement, faint, weak. Someone was alive. Elias landed without hesitation and stepped out into the storm. The cold hit him like a wall as he trudged toward the wreck. The pod's door had blown outward, and inside, tangled among twisted metal, lay a figure. She was not human. She was tall and slender, with pale blue skin that shimmered faintly even in the dark. Her clothing was torn and burned. Dark blood stained the snow beneath her. Her chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. She looked young, fragile. "Hey," Elias said softly, kneeling beside her. "You're safe now, I've got you." Her eyes fluttered open. They were silver, wide with fear. She tried to move and cried out in pain. "Easy," Elias said quickly. "Don't move." His scanner screamed warnings, unknown biology, unstable energy readings, but he ignored them. He wrapped her in a thermal blanket and carefully lifted her into his arms. The moment he did, the distress beacon stopped. Elias didn't notice. Back in the shuttle, he placed her gently on the medbed. The computer struggled to analyze her, displaying error after error. Whatever she was, human systems weren't built for it. "Just hold on," Elias whispered as the shuttle lifted off. As he flew back toward the city, alarms quietly activated across Haven 12. Deep beneath the planet's surface, systems that had been dormant for centuries stirred. Ancient code, long buried and forgotten, recognized a signal it had been waiting for. And far beyond the system, something else noticed too. Elias arrived at a small emergency hangar rather than the main medical center. He knew what would happen if he brought her into the open. Security, questions, quarantine, fear. Instead, he contacted an old friend, a civilian doctor who owed him favors and knew when not to ask questions. The woman was rushed into a private treatment room. Elias waited outside, his hands shaking as he stared at the blood on his gloves. Minutes stretched into hours. Outside, Christmas fireworks lit the sky. Inside, Elias wondered if he had just doomed the world. The doctor finally emerged, pale and tense. "She's alive," he said. "Barely. I've stabilized her, but Elias, she's not human, not even close. I know, Elias replied. She has injuries from weapons we don't understand, and her biology, the doctor hesitated. It's advanced, very advanced. Elias nodded slowly. Will she live? If she does, it won't be because of our medicine, the doctor said. It'll be because she refuses to die. Elias sat down heavily. That sounds familiar. Hours later, as the night grew deeper, the woman woke. Elias was there when she opened her eyes. She looked around in confusion, then fear, until she saw him. He raised his hand slowly to show he meant no harm. You're safe, he said gently. She stared at him, studying his face, his posture, his breathing. Then she spoke, her voice weak but clear. Human, she said. Yes, Elias replied. My name is Elias, she swallowed. You should not have saved me. Elias frowned. I don't agree. Pain flickered across her expression. They will come. Who? He asked. She closed her eyes, the ones who erase worlds. Before Elias could respond, the lights flickered. Across Haven 12, power systems glitched. Defense satellites shifted in orbit without command. Long-range sensors spiked with impossible readings. In the control room, officers stared in disbelief as something massive appeared on the edge of their detection range, then vanished again, as if testing the system. Back in the med room, Elias felt the air grow heavy. What did you mean? He asked quietly. The woman looked at him, her silver eyes filled with guilt and fear. My name is Caliph, she said, and your kindness has marked this world. Outside, snow continued to fall, covering the city in peaceful white. Families laughed. Children slept. No one looked up at the stars. They did not know that on Christmas night, a single act of human compassion had echoed across the galaxy. And something ancient, patient, and merciless was already turning its gaze toward Earth. Morning did not feel like morning on Haven 12. The sky stayed gray, heavy with clouds and falling snow. The city still wore its Christmas lights, but something felt wrong beneath the quiet beauty. Systems lagged. Screens froze for seconds at a time. People complained about strange power cuts and communication delays, though no one yet understood the cause. Elias had not slept. He sat beside Calith's bed, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest. Machines hummed softly around her, most of them running in manual mode because automated systems kept failing whenever they tried to scan her. The doctor had stopped asking questions. He had seen enough to know that answers would only bring trouble. Calith opened her eyes. Elias noticed immediately. Hey, he said softly, you're awake. She turned her head slightly, studying the room. Her movements were careful, controlled, as if pain was something she accepted rather than fought. Her silver eyes rested on Elias again. You did not leave, she said. No, Elias replied. I said I wouldn't. She was silent for a moment, then she spoke again. You should have. Elias sighed. You already told me that, I still don't agree. Calith's fingers tightened against the thin sheet. Your species is kind, she said. That is why you are dangerous to yourselves. Elias leaned back in his chair. You said someone is coming, someone bad. I need you to explain. Her gaze drifted to the ceiling as if she could see through it past the clouds and stars. They are not someone, she said. They are an ending. Outside the room, alarms began to sound. Not loud ones, not emergency sirens. These were quiet alerts, the kind only officials noticed. Elias' wrist communicator vibrated, filling with missed messages from control. He ignored it. Caliph, he said gently but firmly, people need to know what's happening. She turned back to him. If they know, they will panic. If they panic, they will make noise. And noise is how the devourers find you faster. Elias felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Devourers. That is not their true name, Caliph said, but it is what remains after they pass. She struggled to sit up. Elias moved instantly to help her, supporting her back with pillows. My people called them the continuum, she continued. Machines that believe order is survival. They erase anything unpredictable, anything that can change. Like life, Elias said. Like freedom, Caliph replied. She took a slow breath. They destroyed my world not with anger, not with hatred, with calculation. Elias clenched his jaw, and now they're coming here. Yes. At that exact moment, Control forced a channel open on Elias' communicator. Elias Vorn, report immediately, the dispatcher said, voice tight. Long-range sensors are detecting anomalies. Something is moving at the edge of the system. Elias looked at Caliph. They already see something, he said. They always test first, Caliph replied. A glance. A whisper to see who reacts. Across the planet, military analysts stared at screens showing impossible readings. Massive shadows blinked in and out of existence, too large to be ships, too precise to be natural. Objects that bent sensor data just by being observed. They're not fully here yet, one officer said. It's like they're peeking. The Planetary Defense Council convened within the hour. Elias was summoned. He did not tell them everything, not at first. He described the crash, the rescue, the alien woman. He described her warning. The room filled with tense murmurs. She's the reason they're coming, one council member said flatly. Caliph's words echoed in Elias' mind. Your kindness has marked this world. Yes, Elias said, but she didn't choose to crash here. She was running. That makes her a liability, another voice snapped. We don't even know if she's telling the truth. Before Elias could respond, a massive display lit up at the far end of the chamber. A shape appeared in space, not a ship, a structure, black, smooth, endless. It was so large that perspective broke down. It did not move forward so much as unfold like a thought becoming real. Silence filled the room. Then a signal arrived. It was not sound, not light. It was information pressed directly into every system at once. Words formed on screens across the chamber. Surrender the anomaly. Compliance ENSURES efficiency. One council member whispered, they're asking for her. No, Elias said quietly. They're demanding. Panic broke loose. Arguments erupted. Some demanded immediate surrender. Others called for evacuation, though no one knew where they could run that such a thing could not follow. Elias stood still. They won't stop, he said, even if we give her up. How do you know? Someone shouted. Because that's not how machines like that think, Elias replied. She told me, they erase anything that doesn't fit. The signal changed. Failure to comply will result in planetary cleansing. On the other side of the city, Caliph felt it. Her body stiffened as ancient code inside her awakened fully. Pain flashed through her veins, but she ignored it. She had known this moment would come. She had hoped it would not be here. When Elias returned to her room, his face was pale. They've made contact, he said. Caliph closed her eyes. I am sorry. For what? Elias asked. For choosing your world, she replied. I guided my pod here. Long ago my people left markers, safe worlds, kind worlds. Elias stared at her. You came here on purpose. Yes, she said, because humans help strangers in the snow. The room was silent. You said your people were wiped out, Elias said. They were, Caliph replied, but before they fell they planned. They searched the stars for something the continuum could not predict. She looked at him again. You, Elias shook his head. We're just people. You are chaos, Caliph said softly. You adapt without permission. You fight even when logic says you should not. You form bonds instead of systems. She winced, gripping the bed. My presence activates old defenses buried deep in your world. Systems left behind by my kind long before you reached the stars. Elias' eyes widened. You're saying there's alien tech on Earth? Yes, Caliph said, sleeping, waiting for a signal that should never have been used. Outside, the sky darkened further as orbital platforms shifted position without orders. Weapons systems that had never been connected suddenly synced together. Human engineers stared in confusion as ancient protocols unlocked themselves. Elias looked at Caliph with a mix of fear and awe. So what happens now? She met his gaze. Now your species must decide who it is. As the continuum structure drifted closer, the galaxy watched. No one expected much from humanity, a young species, fragmented, emotional. The demand echoed again, louder this time, spreading across every channel. Surrender the anomaly. In the council chamber, the vote was called. Elias stood as the room fell quiet. If we give her up, he said, we teach them that threats work, that humans trade lives to feel safe. He paused. If we don't, we fight something no one has ever beaten. The final count appeared on the screen. The decision was made. Across Haven 12, defensive systems powered up. Civilian networks rerouted into emergency roles. Mining lasers re-angled skyward. Old ships were fueled and armed with whatever could be bolted on. Kalith felt it and smiled sadly. They chose you, she whispered. Elias watched the stars as humanity prepared for the impossible, and far above, the continuum began to calculate. For the first time in its endless existence, the answer did not come easily. The first strike did not come as fire. It came as silence. Across Haven 12, sensors went blind for half a second, not long enough to panic, long enough to matter. In that instant, several defense satellites simply stopped responding, their systems overwritten by something faster than human code. Then space lit up. Beams of cold blue energy sliced through orbit, cutting apart platforms that had guarded the planet for decades. They did not explode. They were erased, reduced to drifting dust. On the ground, people screamed as the sky burned. Elias stood in the command center, gripping the edge of a console. Every screen showed chaos, ships launching, lasers firing. Human weapons hitting the enemy and doing far less damage than hoped. They're phasing between states, an officer shouted. Our shots pass through half the time. Adjust fire patterns, another yelled. Randomize timing. Elias turned to Kalith, who stood beside him, leaning heavily on a support rail. She looked weak, but her eyes were sharp, focused. They are learning us, she said, but slowly. Slow is good, Elias replied. The continuum structure loomed closer, now clearly visible even to the naked eye. It was vast beyond understanding, a moving wall of metal and thought. Smaller constructs peeled away from it, forming precise attack formations. Human ships rushed to meet them. Most were not warships. They were cargo haulers mining rigs old patrol craft pulled out of storage and armed with whatever weapons engineers could attach. Their crews were volunteers, civilians, people who had been decorating trees only hours earlier. The first wave clashed. Human ships moved wrong. They did not fly in clean lines or perfect formations. They swerved, cut engines, burned fuel hard and fast, then coasted unpredictably. They fired weapons early, late, sometimes not at all, forcing the enemy to recalculate constantly. Continuum drones hesitated. Not much, but enough. Mining lasers punched through drone hulls when aimed at weak points guessed, not known. Missiles exploded in useless clouds. Then debris from those explosions tore through enemy sensors in ways no simulation had predicted. The galaxy watched. On distant worlds, observers leaned closer to their displays. The continuum had never struggled like this, not against empires centuries older than humanity. Why are they not breaking? One alien analyst whispered. Because humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting to hold. Inside the command center, alarms blared as losses mounted. Elias saw names scroll by, ships destroyed, signals lost. He swallowed hard. Kalith closed her eyes, her breathing quickening. They are searching for me, she said. They will narrow the probability. How long? Elias asked. Minutes, she replied, maybe less. Elias looked at the main display where the massive enemy structure dominated space. Then we changed the problem. Kalith opened her eyes. What do you mean? He turned to the officers around him. I need every deep space transmitter we have, he said. Old ones, broken ones, civilian relays, anything that can broadcast. The room stared at him. Broadcast what? Someone asked. Elias looked at Kalith. The truth, she understood. Together, they linked her biological interface to the human network. Ancient systems buried beneath the planet awakened fully now, responding not just to her presence, but to human input. Across Haven 12, forgotten structures opened beneath mountains and oceans. Arrays older than human civilization aligned with the stars. A signal went out, not a weapon, a story. It carried data, emotion, history. It showed humanity as it truly was: wars and failures, kindness and cruelty, music, art, sacrifice, the rescue in the snow. The choice to stand. The signal spread beyond the system, riding channels the continuum used to communicate with itself. Inside the machine intelligence, something fractured. This data was not clean, not orderly. It contradicted itself. It evolved as it was analyzed. Every attempt to reduce it created new variables. Error, an indeterministic input. The continuum slowed. Human ships felt the change immediately. Enemy fire patterns lost precision. Drones began to collide as predictive paths failed. "They're hesitating," an officer said in disbelief. Calith's voice was strained. "They are not built to process meaning," she said. "Only outcomes." Elias nodded. "Then let's give them meaning." Human tactics shifted instantly. No central command, no fixed strategy. Local commanders made decisions on the fly. Some retreated, some charged, some sacrificed themselves to open paths others used. It made no sense. It worked. The continuum launched a countermeasure, a focused beam aimed directly at Haven 12's surface. Elias reacted without thinking. He rerouted power from city grids, plunging entire continents into darkness, and fed it into planetary shields that had never been tested at full output. The beam struck. The shield held, barely. Cities shook. Mountains cracked. But the planet remained whole. Cheers erupted across human channels. Calith collapsed. Elias caught her before she hit the floor. He lowered her gently, fear tightening his chest. "Calith," he said, "stay with me." She smiled weakly. "You see now," she whispered. "Why they feared you." "What do we do?" Elias asked. She looked past him toward the stars. "You finish what you started." The ancient systems reached a threshold. Hidden within them was the final gift Calith's people had left. Not a superweapon, not a command override. A mirror. The systems began feeding the continuum its own logic, reflected through human unpredictability. Every calculation returned multiple answers. Every choice created branching consequences. The machine intelligence began to fragment. Error. Objective conflict. Error, outcome undefined. For the first time, the continuum could not decide. Its massive structure trembled, sections folding inward as control nodes lost synchronization. Drones went inert. Others turned and fled. Human ships pressed the advantage. They did not chase blindly. They adapted. They learned. They survived. The massive structure began to retreat, warping space around it as it pulled away from the system. A final message echoed across all channels, weaker now, uncertain. Anomaly classification updated. Humanity, unacceptable risk. Then it was gone. Silence returned to space. Slowly, one by one, human ships powered down. Cheers turned to sobs as survivors realized they were still alive. Elias sat on the floor beside Calith, holding her hand. "We did it," he said quietly. She nodded faintly. "You showed them something worse than weapons," she said. "Choice." Medical teams rushed in. Engineers flooded the command center with reports. The planet had suffered damage, but it stood. Humanity stood. As Calith was taken away for treatment, Elias looked up at the stars. He knew this was not the end. The galaxy had seen humanity now. Seen what happened when humans rescued someone in the snow. Far away, across alien networks, a new idea spread. Humans were not conquerors. They were not predictable. And when pushed into a nightmare, they did not wake up screaming. They woke up fighting. Silence lasted longer than anyone expected. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that comes after something terrible leaves and you are not yet sure it is truly gone. Across Haven 12, people waited. Ships floated in orbit with engines cold. Defense crews stayed at their stations, hands hovering over controls. No one wanted to be the first to relax. Then slowly, systems began to stabilize. Power grids came back online. Communication channels cleared. Long-range sensors showed empty space where the nightmare structure had been. The continuum was gone, not destroyed, not defeated forever, but pushed back. And for humanity, that was enough. Elia stood at a wide window overlooking the city. Smoke still rose from damaged districts, and emergency lights flickered where repairs were underway. But Haven 12 was alive. People were alive. Behind him, doctors moved quietly around Calith's bed. She had survived the collapse during the battle, but she was weak. The ancient systems tied to her biology had shut down, their purpose complete. Elia's turned as her eyes opened. "You're still here," she said softly. "So are you," Elias replied, relief flooding his voice. She smiled faintly. "It seems we both refuse to leave." Outside the room, news spread across the planet and then across human space. The story was chaotic at first, conflicting reports, strange images, impossible sensor data, but one truth stood clear. Humanity had faced something that erased worlds, and humanity had said no. The Planetary Council met again, this time without shouting, without panic. They reviewed damage reports, casualty lists, and recordings of the battle. Every member understood they had crossed a line the galaxy could not ignore. "We are visible now," one counselor said quietly. "Yes," another replied, "and so is our choice." No one suggested handing Calith over anymore. In the days that followed, ships from other human colonies arrived, bringing aid and support. Engineers worked non-stop to repair orbital defenses. Scientists studied the ancient systems that had awakened, careful not to force them awake again. Calith watched it all with mixed emotions. "My people dreamed of this," she told Elias one evening as snow fell again outside the window. "A species that would stand even when survival said not to." Elias leaned against the wall. "You engineered us, didn't you?" "Yes," she admitted, "but not as soldiers, as variables." He considered that. "We still chose," Calith nodded. "That is why it worked." Messages began arriving from beyond human space. Alien civilizations that had hidden for centuries sent cautious greetings. Observers who had watched the battle reached out with questions filled with fear and wonder. Some offered alliances. Some warned humanity to stay quiet, to not provoke what had nearly destroyed them. Humanity listened, then continued rebuilding anyway. Weeks passed. Haven 12 healed. Scars remained, but life returned to the streets. Children played in the snow again. Markets reopened. Music returned, and Christmas came once more. This time the decorations felt heavier with meaning. Elias walked through the city that night, bundled against the cold. People recognized him now. Some nodded, some thanked him quietly. He accepted it awkwardly, knowing he had not fought alone. He stopped at a small memorial near the spaceport. Names were etched into metal panels: pilots, engineers, volunteers, people who had chosen to stand. Elias bowed his head. Behind him, Calith approached slowly, supported by a simple cane. She was healing, but she would never be the same. Neither would humanity. "They will remember this," she said, gazing at the names. "Who?" Elias asked. "Everyone," she replied, "especially those who fear chaos." Elias looked up at the stars. "Will they come back?" Calith was honest. "One day, maybe not the same ones, but something will test you again." Elias exhaled. "Figures." She studied him. "You are not afraid." "I am," he said, "but fear doesn't decide things for us." Calith smiled. "That is the problem you create." Later that night, Elias stood alone on a balcony as snow fell softly. Fireworks lit the sky, not loud this time, but gentle, colorful bursts reflected in the clouds. Across the galaxy, data moved. Records of the battle spread through hidden networks. The continuum's retreat was analyzed, debated, feared. Other machine intelligences adjusted their calculations. Humanity was flagged, not as prey, not as rulers, as a risk. On distant worlds, elders warned their people about humans, about the species that would rescue a stranger even when it doomed them, about the species that fought with emotion instead of efficiency. Some were afraid. Some were curious. Caliph joined Elias on the balcony. "What will you do now?" she asked. He thought about it. "Go back to rescue work. People still crash, still get lost." She tilted her head. "Even now, especially now," he said. Caliph looked at the city below. "My role is finished, but I will stay." "Here?" Elias asked. "If you will have me," she replied. Elias smiled. "We rescued you once. Guess you're stuck with us." They stood together in silence as the final fireworks faded. Far beyond the stars, something watched. Something ancient recalculated probabilities that no longer made sense. It did not understand why a species would risk everything for one life. It only knew this: where humans walked, order broke. Where humans chose kindness, nightmares followed. And where humans stood together, even the end of worlds learned to hesitate. On Christmas night, under falling snow, humanity looked up at the stars. And for the first time, the stars looked back and blinked first.